Hi everyone, welcome to Socorro's webinar series, Coastal Observing in Your Community. My name is Abby Wakely, Socorro's Director of Communications, and I will be facilitating and moderating the webinar. Socorro is hosting this webinar series to discuss, highlight, and raise awareness about coastal ocean observing activities in the Southeast US and beyond. Socorro is the regional coastal ocean observing system for North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. We are one of 11 that make up the NOAA-led U.S. Integrated Ocean Observing System, also known as USIUS. Our mission is to sustain and promote observations that help keep you safe. This is a quick snapshot of the technology we support to accomplish our mission. I would like to invite you to another Socorro webinar on April 4th to learn about Mote Marine Laboratory's Beach Conditions Reporting System. It will be presented by Aspen Cook, and you'll see the QR code here. You can scan that, or you can visit our website for more information. All right, let's get to the reason you are all here, the webinar. During the webinar, we highly encourage you all to ask questions for the presenters or technical questions for me by clicking the tablet-looking icon and typing your question in. I will post them to the presenters after their presentation. We are recording this webinar today and we'll be posting the recording on the Socorro website. We are so very excited to welcome Brian McCallum and Athena Clark from United States Geological Survey, also known as USGS. They will be presenting today USGS Water Observing System Network in response to the 2022 tropical and extratropical storms. Brian is currently the National Stream Gauge Network Coordinator within USGS Water Mission Area Observing Systems Division. He started full-time with the USGS Baton Rouge, Louisiana office in 1993 and became Data Chief in 2000 until he took his current role in 2021. Brian has a passion for communicating USGS science to stakeholders and partners. Brian is also Project Chief on the NOMS national effort to merge data feeds into a unified dashboard viewer called the National Water Dashboard. Athena Clark is currently serving as the USGS Coastal Storm Team Leader, USGS Southeast Region Science Advisor, and Tribal Liaison. Prior to her current role, Athena also served as the USGS Alabama Water Science Director and the USGS Lower Mississippi Gulf Deputy Director. Athena is the recipient of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Bonds Award for commendable service and the Environmental Protection Agency National Notable Achieve Award. All right, Brian, you are going to kick us off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and make you presenter.
Thanks, Abby.
And I'll let you know when I see your screen. I see it. You're good to go.
Okay. Well, thanks, Abby, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm here to talk today about hopefully something you're very familiar with, and that's our USGS Water Observing Systems Network, or our long-term fixed network of stream gauges, groundwater wells, and water quality stations. So the USGS Water Observing Systems Network is a network of networks. It is made up of many layers of national networks and regional networks, including what we're calling the National Stream Gauge Network, or NSN, the National Water Quality Network, which is our former NASQUAN and NAQUA sampling sites across the country, the National Groundwater Monitoring Network, which is a collaboration with many state and local entities to bring together a national groundwater monitoring network. We have also a climate response network, which is our trend network for groundwater levels across the country. And then finally, our National Atmospheric Deposition Program, or NADP, which it was created in the 1970s to study the acid rain issues, and continues to this day, and now starting to look at PFAS and other important issues that are arising at this time. These all work together to help serve the mission of the USGS and complement the monitoring locations that are operated by many other state and local partnerships. So in essence, this is a reference network to help compare things nationally. Let's focus in on the National Stream Gauging Network and the water and the hydrology portion today. The NHN itself is a network of networks that's built with partnerships across the nation. First and foremost is the Federal Priority Stream Gauge Network. This is a federally funded backbone network of stream gauges and water level gauges. It includes the National Weather Service forecast locations across the country. In addition to that, we have a national network of Corps of Engineers gauges that they use to monitor and maintain their projects across the country, mostly in the west, mostly in the east and some in the west. They use these to manage the watersheds where these dams and projects are located at. We have the International Joint Basin Commission gauges, which is along the upper tier between Canada and the United States to monitor the international boundary there. We have the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation gauges, our sister agency in DOI, that's predominantly out west. The International Boundary and Water Commission, which is along the southern border of the United States and Mexico. And then throw into that all of the hundreds and hundreds of other federal, state, and local entities that we have partnerships with across the country that make the entire backbone of the National Stream Gauge Network. This is a snapshot recently from the National Water Dashboard, and it gives you kind of an idea of the spread of the National Stream Gauge Network Streamflow stations, the actual locations that we are computing real-time continuous stream flow at. There's about 8,700 of those currently, and this number varies during the year because some are inactive due to snow melt or snow conditions or ice conditions, things like that. So this number does vary throughout the year, but right now it's about 8,750 that are active on the dashboard. The NSN is comprised of different components as well. There's the traditional stage discharge sites that we go out and make routine measurements at 6 to 8 times a year and relate water level to discharge or stream flow. But then there's also a number of complex rating sites, in particular index velocity sites, which are very important along the coastal areas that allow us to measure discharge in tidal zones or backwater conditions. And that's relatively new technology within the last decade or so in the whole history of the USGS. But it has allowed us to branch out and get further into these more complex areas to measure stream flow. We augment the National Stream Gauge Network with stage-only sites or tidal sites along the coast, co-located rain gauges and water quality sensors. We also have non-continuous water level sites such as crest stage gauges that help maintain peak stream flow, mostly to help compute flood frequency. And then we also, and this is what Athena is going to focus on, is the short-term network deployments, rapid deployment gauges, storm surge sensors, and high water marks along the coast. We've been doing this for quite a while now. The first USGS stream gauge was set up on the Rio Grande River in New Mexico in 1889. And since then, our network has grown to where we have 848 centennial gauges. And these are gauges that have more than 100 years of record. Three of these 848 have been recently submitted to the WMO to be highlighted as World Centennial Recognition. And if you, this link here, I'm going to click on that and it will show the gauges through the ages. And this is kind of how our network has grown over the years. You can see the map with the dots increasing over time. At the bottom here is the timeline, and it's kind of staggering through the years. And you can see how our network has grown in certain spots, certainly along the Atlantic seaboard, where there's a lot of population and a lot of water issues, and along the western coastline as well. Again, a lot of population, a lot of water issues. Right about now, where you see a decrease in long-term gauges in the 1990s, and right there is where the FPS program started, and so our network started growing again, thanks to federal appropriations to help maintain our long-term stream gauges. All right, I'm going to shrink that down. You can just Google that if you have an interest in that. I'll just Google USGS gauges through the ages, and you should be able to find that. The National Stream Gauge Network has many uses, from water supply, water management, water quality. But back in 2005, 2006, the National Hydrologic Warning Council highlighted the use of our National Stream Gauge Network for flood management benefits. And this report here, I clipped out the finding here that highlights that basically the benefits of reducing flood damages, just flood damages alone, more than pays for the entire stream gauge network itself. And so the bang for the buck that the citizens are getting for the National Stream Gauge Network is quite significant, because this is just one factor of many, many uses for the National Stream Gauge Network. We've been doing this, like I said, for many, many years, and we kind of wrote the book on stream gauging techniques, including what we call the historical, or the Streamflow Bible, the Rants volumes back in the water supply paper era. And we now have new techniques and methods that are publicly available that you can use as references for how to collect, similar to how the USGS does it. So these have been used from all across the world as references for monitoring locations by many countries. We are continuing to invest in our stream gauge techniques through our NGWAS, or Next Generation Water Observing Systems program. This is an example of using cameras to estimate velocity of the surface velocity of the rivers, so that we can compute discharge. We also use cameras now to monitor water levels. We are also trying to tie in satellite-based remote sensing calibrated by our fixed monitoring networks to better estimate stream flow from satellites. And then the whole new realm of science is the unmanned or unoccupied aircraft systems, UAS, drones, basically, to better estimate the water conditions. So that's a lot of research that's going into our next generation networks. We have also, last year, started a revamp of our FPS network using, in collaboration with our other federal partners. We did an online survey of our federal partners and stakeholders to see how the FPS or stream gauging network could better serve their missions. We had a listening session where we had 2 questions, basically, what or how could the FPS be possibly expanded to better serve their missions, such as water supply monitoring, federal reservoir pool monitoring, things like that. We also asked what new data would you like to see at FPS gauges? And so with this feedback that we received from both the online survey and the listening sessions, we've come up with updated federal priorities that are listed here in orange: water forecasting and water operations, monitoring of boundaries, compacts, treaties, and federal lands, water budgets, or estimating how much is coming off the major watersheds, the long-term hydrologic trends and the extremes, both floods and droughts, and then supporting the water quality ongoing efforts of monitoring water quality and ecosystem health. One of the little known trivia pieces is that one of the most important water quality parameters is actually streamflow or discharge, because if you don't have that, then you can't do your trends and concentrations and modeling. So streamflow is extremely important for water quality. And some of the things, in answer to the second question of the new data, some of the new data types that we hope to start adding in the coming years with FPS is precipitation gauges, water temperature continuous at the sites, as well as webcams or imagery. So hopefully that will be something you'll start to see at FPS sites in the near future. Another thing that the USGS is undertaking is how you access the USGS data. And first and foremost is the new National Water Dashboard. I showed you a snapshot of that earlier. The link is there underneath the image. But that was released a couple years ago, and it has all of our real-time data from our water observing systems shown, in addition to it's married with weather service and drought information from NIDIS. So you can see forecasts, you can see radar, you can see the National Drought Monitor, all there in one easy to use interface, and it's mobile friendly as well. We just got done revamping the USGS Water Alert. That was released this past fall. And the Water Alert was actually created here in Georgia back in 2009. But the new version is now very mobile friendly, and it's easier to manage your notifications. But you can sign up for any gauge or well in the country. And if it has real-time data, you can set a threshold that you are interested in, and it will let you know when that gauge or well reaches that threshold. And then last but not least is the new water data for the nation. This is our new site pages for all of our real-time sites. And this is fully interactive now and mobile friendly. It replaces the classic NWIS web pages that we've been using hopefully for many years now. There's going to be a lot more to come with water data for the nation, but these three products are the first out in a series of new products and web presence that you'll be seeing from the USGS over the coming years. So with that, I just wanted to close and with that kind of overview of what the Water Observing Systems Network is and how you have access to it and how it can serve you. But we've been doing this, especially the stream gauging, since 1889, and it continues to serve our stakeholders, our cooperators, and the general public to provide that real-time data that you so hopefully depend on in your day-to-day decisions. But it's also there to allow for informed decisions to be made regarding the protection of life, property, the economy, and the environment. And we're continuing to invest in it so we can be ready to solve the water issues for the next decade and beyond. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to Abby.
Thanks, Brian. All right, Athena, I am going to promote you to presenter. And if anyone has any questions, they're welcome to type it in the chat at any time.
Just doing a mic check.
We can hear you and we can see your presentation.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off though.
Save the bandwidth.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, thanks so much for inviting USGS to this series here. We appreciate the invitation. My name is Athena Clark, and I am the USGS Coastal Storm Team Leader. And my presentation is on USGS's response to the 2022 tropical and extratropical storms. So the USGS Coastal Storm Team, we are a large multidisciplinary group comprised of USGS and partner agencies, and we're activated as necessary in response to tropical and extratropical storms. So you can see a list of the various agencies that participate in Coastal Storm Team. The image on the upper left is Jamie Rome at the National Hurricane Center. And then we have other photos of just group photos of our friends at NOAA and also with the National Weather Service. And last year, Socorro joined the Coastal Storm Team and reported out during some of those storm team calls. And I would like to just extend an invitation to y'all. If you're interested in joining Coastal Storm Team, please let me know, and I'll be glad to invite you to those calls. If you're not able to join, no worries. I do send out the notes after the calls, and that way you can stay current with the most up-to-date information on that current storm. So last year, the USGS hosted coastal storm team calls for Alex, Fiona, Alaska, extratropical storm, Hurricane Ian, and also Hurricane Nicole. And just so you know, you saw Brian's presentation on all those USGS stream gauges. So whenever there's a hurricane, USGS will actually collect additional data in addition to those permanent gauges. We will deploy temporary stream gauges, also known as rapid deployment gauges. You can see this one here in the upper right. That's an RGG, I believe, that was installed at New Bern during Hurricane Florence. And then also we collect what is called observed data, which is currently not real time. So ahead of the storm, we'll deploy barometric pressure sensors, storm tide and wave sensors. And then after the storm, depending on the extent of flooding, we'll also collect high water marks. And normally this additional data set is funded under a FEMA mission assignment. So last year, we responded to the Alaska extratropical storm. I believe this may have been the very first coastal storm team held in Alaska. And that was a rather large, unusual event. And we were very proud to host that call. If you go to the USGS Flood Event Viewer, you'll be able to view and download over 440 high water marks. And what's unusual about this particular situation is that those high water marks were actually not collected by USGS. We actually hosted the high water marks that were collected by the state of Alaska. Also, we collected a lot of data for Hurricane Ian, also under a FEMA mission assignment. You can see the counts there. Over 390 pressure transducers were deployed. And we also put out 54 RDGs. And again, you can view and download this data via the Flood Event Viewer. One of the things I wanted to say about the Flood Event Viewer is the word event. So you can get USGS real-time data through all those different products that Brian previously mentioned. And you can also get it here as well. But in addition to that, we also host data that's collected, or event-based data that you cannot get anywhere else. Last year, we also experimented with delivering real-time storm tide data using low-cost pressure transducers that delivered data using GOES and also cellular telemetry. This particular one was installed in the Florida Keys. And so we were able to demonstrate, as the hurricane is making landfall in real time, the water levels along the coastline. And this red line here was just my little chicken scratch of an approximate path of Hurricane Ian. And this sensor here was recording the drawdown or the set down, literally water pushing, hurricane winds pushing water away from the coastline. That was what you would call the clean side of the storm. And then on the dirty side of the storm, we were able to see in real time this storm tide peak here. So I just mentioned all this information can be found in the USGS Flood Event Viewer, and I've got a link provided there. I also wanted to talk to you just a little bit about two other products that are available. This particular one here is the USGS Total Water Level and Coastal Change Forecast Viewer. It is a forecast of the total water level along the coastline, and it's available right now 24/7. I am going to just slide this this particular product over just so you can see what that looks like. And so this is the total water level in coastal change forecast viewer. These are regional forecasts, which basically gives you an idea about the impacts to the dune. So if it's green, dune impacts are unlikely. If it's yellow, then there's a potential for erosion. Orange is potential for overwash, and red is a potential for inundation. And it's very interesting to watch this, especially as a hurricane is making landfall, because all of this will change. And I'm just going to just pick an area here. So this is a regional forecast, and then we can go into this to be able to see the individual site forecasts. And this is, I'll just pick one. I'll pick one here that shows a potential for overwash. And then when you click that, then you can see the dune elevations here and the forecast of the total water level against that dune. Let me go ahead and slide this over. There's another product called the Coastal Change Hazards Portal, and we commonly refer this as our bacon strip model, simply because it looks like a slab of bacon laid along the coastline. And I'm going to slide this over. And so this is the forecast for Hurricane Florence. And basically what you're seeing in this portal is the probability of storm-induced collision, overwash, or inundation. And what you really don't want to see in the forecast is the most outer band with a very high probability, because that would indicate that the entire beach is submerged, and it would indicate significant flooding in that area. Go ahead and slide that over, and I believe that concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to demonstrate these products more if you have any particular questions about them. This is basically the calm before the storm. This is a USGS sensor that was installed ahead of Hurricane Ian. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Athena. And so if anyone has any questions, they can type it into the chat and I'll post it to either Brian or Athena. We did have one question come in. Brian, you mentioned that you are installing cameras in addition to the stream gauges. How do you derive the water level height with camera data?
Yeah, this is part of our NGWAS research that is happening in 4 basins currently. They are just using the video to reference the changing pictures over time. And many times they also have like a staff gauge on the side to help with that. But yeah, it's the idea is that the imagery change, that they're tracking the changes of the imagery over time to do water level estimation. I'm not an expert on that, so don't I can point you to the right people on that, but that's the idea behind it.
Perfect. I think that satisfies the question, and if they need further clarification, I'll point them towards you. And so, Athena, another question came in. You had that great data visualization of the visual dune of the overwash. Is that available for each location, or is it? It is. Wow.
Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So these are individual site forecasts, and then you also have your regional forecast as well.
Great. I'm very impressed to see the visual of the overwash and to communicate that water level height.
Yes, ma'am. And as a hurricane's making landfall, I mean, these will normally turn red, and it's very interesting to just watch the forecast and the dynamics of that compared to the dunes.
All right. So we did have another question from Brian, and this is for Athena. The rapid deployment gauges approach sounds great. Physical installation seems like one part, but also the R2K surveying is another challenge that limits the numbers of devices deployed in the quickest time. How do you handle this?
Well, so the rapid deployment gauges, you're talking about the surveying piece of that?
I believe so.
Yeah, so when they're installed, they are surveyed in, and then the elevations that are provided are referenced to NAVD 88, and it is a challenge. One of the things that we would love to do is actually not do as many rapid deployments, but actually have real-time sensors in place along the coastline where we don't necessarily have to rapidly deploy them, that they're already there collecting data. Could be, during a hurricane season or even year long.
And Athena, just to add, typically when we deploy rapid deployment gauges, we go back to the same location again
Yes.
and again. So it's already surveyed.
Yes. Yeah, we
That's
kind of like
wonderful.
have our favorites, they're kind of like we've already deployed there, like the one that I showed you at New Bern. If there's another hurricane that tracks up that way, we know that's, a potential RDG site.
That's wonderful to hear that you guys have spots identified where you want water level stations, and maybe that's something that Socorro can assist with, or other folks on the call.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes we'll put RDGs at locations where a permanent gauge was damaged or destroyed. And it's not uncommon for a given storm that we use the same RDG in multiple locations. So we may have used them initially, along the coastline, but then, as the coastal event has waned and we are looking at more riverine type flooding, then we would move that RDG to another location.
Yeah.
Love it, and love the flexibility of the network. There is another question from David. There are more than 8,700 sensors across the country. Do you have a central server to process the data in real time? And if the sensor amount grows and the amount of measurements grows as well, how do you scale up the processing capability?
Well, we're currently undergoing modernization of our database system now. Those 3 web pages I showed you is just the public facing portion of that whole modernization effort. But we're basically upgrading the telemetry portion, which is primarily GOES, but also a number of them are cellular as well. So we're upgrading the telemetry portion, we're upgrading the database itself continuously. And yes, as we continue to hopefully expand the network, the supporting systems have to grow right along with it.
And Brian, there was a follow-up to that question, but I think you answered it. Have you encountered problems due to limited communication bandwidth, data loss, or long delay of data transfer?
By far, in my experience, the telemetry using GOES or satellite telemetry is by far the most rock solid, because when a hurricane hits, the cell networks are always jammed up with people trying to call loved ones or emergency management or things like that. So GOES historically has been the most robust, but it's, we're continually looking at new technologies and for telemetry, such as Iridium, such as cell phone based, of course, and trying to get priority access to cellular networks during these extreme events. We are continually seeing our bandwidth being shrunken for the GOES satellite due to just the increased use and popularity of cell phones and such. So we're constantly having to upgrade our telemetry systems in the field to deal with that narrowing of the bandwidth. But one of the nice things we're looking forward to is having two-way communications through GOES in the coming decade.
Thanks, Brian. Athena, did you have anything to add?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, so another question from Kevin. What percentage of your sensors are in tidal areas and or reporting relative to MLLW, which is mean level, or
Mean
I almost have it.
Mean low water?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that's a tough question. Let me just pull up the flood event viewer and we can look at what was deployed during Hurricane Ian. And so I'm just going to turn this all off here because it gets really, really busy real quick. But as I had mentioned earlier, you can actually see the permanent real-time stream gauges even through the flood event viewer. However, you do have to be at level 9 to be able to see that because it's just so much data that's being loaded that it just kind of bogs the system down. So I'm just going to kind of go into Florida here and zoom to level 9. And then at this level, I'll be able to turn on those real-time stream gauges. So you can see all have access to all of those gauges, even through the flood event viewer. And if you click on it, you'll be able to actually see, you know, what actually took place during that event. So with these water level sensors, there's actually 2 different types. We deploy water level sensors, and we also deploy wave height sensors. And we have a lot more water level sensors than we do wave height sensors, simply because the wave height sensors are very expensive. I believe currently we're using like the RBR type sensors, and they're a little over $3,000 a pop. So you'll see a lot more water level sensors, and they are collecting data like every 30 seconds. The RBR sensors will be collecting data. I think we have the capacity to go up to like 16 hertz, but I think they've been set at 4 hertz. And I'm not sure if I answered your question or not.
Well, I was going to add, Athena, that nationwide we are surveying all of our continuous sites to NAVD 88.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see that as the default datum, and I believe, Athena, the storm tide stuff is also set to NAVD 88 as well, right?
Yes, sir, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So the datum issue is a tricky thing because, and that's one of the big topics of our collaborations with our other federal partners, is how to relate everything the same way and present it the same way, so that you're not looking at two apples and oranges potentially. And but the datum for USGS, our default is going to be NAVD 88, with the idea that all of our products hopefully will be able to adjust. The user will be able to adjust them to the various different datums. Hopefully that helped as well answer the question.
I would love to eventually get to the point where we can actually, the user can toggle and have the datum, change based on their preference, but we're not at that point yet.
Yeah, one of the effort that we're doing the last several years to get all of our continuous sites to NAVD 88 is an anticipation of being able to adjust on the fly in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with the NOAA tide gauges, I believe you have the ability to select, how you want to see it, and we currently do not have that feature.
Thank you. I believe that answered the question and more. I learned a lot. All right, any more questions for Athena or Brian? You can type them into the chat, and if I have your permission, Athena and Brian, I would love to share your email address with folks if they have questions directly for you.
Sure thing.
All right, so I put their email, let me send it to the entire audience. Put their email in the chat if anyone has questions, and we'll also be posting a recording of the webinar on our website and send it to everybody who has registered. We'll give it one more minute for questions to come in. All right. So I'm
I,
not seeing
I
any
wanted,
questions. Yeah, go
yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to say thank you for your participation in the Coastal Storm Team call. So I encourage y'all to continue to do that and join the calls. It's very fun. I love it, and it's very informative. So you do get to hear from other agencies, what they're doing, and so consider the Coastal Storm Team as just a collaborative space where you get to know pretty much everything that's going on with that particular storm. The Corps of Engineers report out on flood inundation mapping, and National Weather Service report out on flooding, and National Hurricane Center, they're the first report out of the call. So
Great. Thanks, Athena. And would they contact you if they want to participate for next season?
yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And I can say from Socorro, we have learned a lot, shared a lot of the information on our website and to our members. So I highly recommend participating. And we're grateful for you letting us have that opportunity to have that conversation with everyone.
Oh, you're welcome. You get to share your data there as well. So I know that you do collect data as well. So if there's anything that you like to share, that's your opportunity.
Wonderful. And I'm getting lots of kudos in. So thank you, Athena and Brian. And I think we'll end early, give everyone 20 minutes back of their time. And as I said before, I'll be posting the recording. And I want to thank you all so much, especially Athena and Brian, for presenting to us today. And you have their email address if anybody has follow-up questions. All right.
Thank
Well,
you
thank
everyone
you
for your
all.
time.
Thank you.
Happy Tuesday. Great presentation.
Thank you.